Welcome to
Okay.
the Optimize Law Firm podcast. My name is Patrick Carver, the owner of Constellation Marketing, and this podcast is all about helping law firm owners run a more profitable, more enjoyable law firm. And really excited to have our guest today. It's James Brown, and James started his journey he was the owner of a bankruptcy firm that actually got to 8 figures before he left. Excuse me, did I get that right? Is it 8 figures or okay? Yeah. So eight figures, and then he exited. And after selling the business, he's been helping other law firm owners grow their businesses. We've met over a couple of clients that we share, and I've just been really impressed with his approach and the conversations we've had, because I think we're very aligned, as far as what law firms should expect from consultants and marketers. So welcome. Thanks so much for doing this, James.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, a little bit. My background has been a little bit unorthodox. I always grew up this blue collar type family. My mom and dad own a sewer and drain cleaning business, and I was very blue collar, and I had to pay my own way through college and all of that. And I worked at General Motors for 11 years through undergraduate and graduate school. And, so when I got done with law school, I sent out 200 resumes and I got 0 response. And in hindsight, I wouldn't have hired me either, because I didn't even clerk in a law firm. So it forced me to start my own firm right out of law school. And literally it was just me and my wife. And right from the very beginning, I wanted to build it differently. I had a 5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And I said from the very beginning that I don't want to work past 4:30. I'm not going to miss any of their events, any of their school events, any of their sporting events, any of that. I want to be home for dinner. But I had to figure out a way to do that when the business was open till 7 p.m. So one of the key things for everybody to understand is everything in this world, no matter what it is created twice. Okay. We create it first in our mind, and then you have to go out and create it in reality. Think about building a home, right? Before you even shovel that first shovel full of dirt, you're thinking about, like, the home we just built recently. It literally revolved around a 48-inch, 8-burner gas Italian range that I wanted. It was stainless steel with gold accents. And I'm like a big chef kind of guy. And so that my whole house was built around that, and so we had all this stuff planned out, and a media room and an outdoor kitchen and a resort style pool. And I wanted it on 3 acres, right? So I'm creating that all in my mind before we even started talking to an architect.
Right.
And you put it into a plan, and then you execute the plan. If I would have just started digging the dirt and start hammering the nails, and then halfway through try to figure out what I'm doing, it ends up with a lot of costly adjustments, a lot of mistakes, a lot of lost time. Okay. A business is no different. You have to have it in your mind what you want to create, and then how we're going to do it. And that starts by putting together a plan that we can follow, that we can go execute. Every business, no matter what it is, has the same 7 working parts. It's marketing, sales, your factory that produces whatever it is you're selling, the people to run the factory, your physical plant, whether it's physical or virtual, your money and metrics, and then the last one is you, the owner. And that's the most important part, is you, because without you, there is no business. But Walmart is the same. They have the same 7 working parts. They just sell something different. Law firms have 7 working parts. So what I found was, when I first started my firm, I didn't have a plan. And I'm just like, I want more. Okay, more what? I couldn't answer that question, because I just knew I wanted more. So it started to get me to really focus on, what do I want this firm to look like, and how am I going to get there? Okay. And sometimes where we want the firm to go, we have to understand we're not going to get there overnight, right? So let's say, for example, I set as a goal for me that I want to run a marathon, right? I'm not going to run a marathon next month, but if I say I'm going to run a marathon within 2 years, and so then that's my outcome goal, that's my process goal. But then every month I'm going to add a mile. So next month I'm going to do 1 mile, then 2 miles, then 3 miles. That's something that's reachable. That's feasible. I can do that, and I can track against my progress, ultimately, to get to a marathon in 2 years. So think of our business the same way. Where do we want it to be 2, 3, 5 years from now? And what has to be true on December 31st of 2024 for that to start happening? Then we look ahead to 2025, right? And then what are we going to plan for 2025? It's not enough just to say, I want to make more money. And so the importance of having a business plan in place that tells exactly what we're trying to do. And that business plan revolves around the you part. So as a business owner, what is my personal, professional, and financial goals? I don't know. What do I want the business to make? Well, how much do I want to make personally? So I envision the life that I want to live. Let's say that this year I'm going to pull $200,000 out of the business, but man, I want to buy a second house in Belize. I want a fancy car. I want to do 10 trips next year. So that life is going to cost me $500,000 next year. Okay. So that's my personal goal. Now, how much does the business have to earn in order for me to make that? And it's really a reverse engineering thing. So if I know, let's say that my net profit margin in the business is 40%. Okay. So if I want to make 500,000 next year, I just take 500,000, I divide that by 0.40. And I know that next year my business has to gross 1.25 million. So if I'm only on pace to make, let's say 800,000 this year, then I know my goal revenue for next year is 1.25 million.
Yeah.
Great. Now I have a goal.
Yeah. And that's a good segue, I think, for what do you think at this stage of the year folks should be focused on, right? So you've talked about the business plan. I think, just kind of hearing it, I think if you don't have any of that structure set up, thinking about it in terms of what's the 2-year, 5-year plan may seem a little daunting. So kind of from a tactical point of view, we're already in October. Like what should that law firm owner be thinking about as kind of like must-haves exercises that they should do between now and the end of December?
The first thing I would say is don't let off the gas on this year, right? Mm-hmm. We just started fourth quarter, right? Don't let off the gas. What do we have to do to finish strong to hit or come close to our goals for 2024? But that momentum will carry over into next year. I see a lot of people that either because of holidays or this or that, they'll take their foot off the gas in fourth quarter, or they'll use any other excuse like, oh, well, fourth quarter is usually slow. There's nothing I can do about it. To me, that is a limiting belief that's holding you back. Right. And so that's number one, is finish this year strong. Number two is fourth quarter is also planning quarter. Think of your business as a stool with 3 legs. Okay. Mm-hmm. And if any one of those legs is missing, it's going to topple over. So the first leg is the business plan. The second leg is a marketing plan. And the third leg is a budget that's aligned with those two. And so with my private clients, fourth quarter is our planning quarter. So by October 15th of every year, I want that business plan done for next year. Then I'm going to take that business plan and I've got the general framework and I know how much revenue we want to make. I know how many cases we're going to need to get in order to make that revenue. And I know based on my internal conversion rates, how many leads I need. Now I need to do a marketing plan to show how I'm going to get them. So I have my people do a marketing plan by November 15th.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we know what marketing plan it's going to take us to get there and how much it's going to cost us to do that marketing plan, now I could do the budget by December 15th. And so I'm hitting the ground running January 1st. And I'll throw the number 3 thing in there is so number 2 is to make sure we're getting those plans in place. Don't wait till first quarter. If you wait till first quarter, you're not going to finish this till March or April. And then you've wasted 25% of the year. So always be working a quarter ahead. Once you have your marketing plan in place, what do we need to be doing now to set up our new marketing strategies or adjust our current marketing strategies? Let's say increase their pay-per-click spend, right?
Mm-hmm.
In first quarter, we want to increase our spend. We want to add new locations, maybe expand the zip codes, whatever it is. So working with you to make sure that that's in place in January. So we're always thinking a quarter ahead. And I think that's the biggest things I would be doing, the top 3 things I would be doing to finish out this year strong.
Do you think with a business plan, do you see a lot of change in your clients from year to year with those, or is it, you can get a good start on it, or basically have a good foundation, and then the next year is more or less modifying it, or what do you see most commonly?
Yeah, the first year putting one together is always a little bit more difficult because they haven't thought in those terms before. And also a lot of the things that they're doing is a hypothesis, right? A business plan is like, okay, I've never done this before, so let me just make some educated guesses here. And when I say educated guesses, there's ways to do that without just pulling a rabbit out of a hat. But then it gets easier in year 2 and 3 because now you have historical data that you can get an accurate average case value. You can get your net profit margin. You can find out what your conversion rates are because now I'm tracking them. Whereas I've run into business owners who've never tracked them before. Or if I ask them, what's your conversion rate? They'll say 7%. And I'll be like, 7% of what?
50%.
Yeah. And I'm like, of what? And so there's 4 internal conversion rates they should be tracking because each one of those tells me a story of what part of their system is not working right. And a lot of times people will come to the conclusion that, oh, I'm only converting 7%, so marketing sucks. And no, maybe your intake person sucks. Maybe your salesperson sucks, but we don't know that unless we're tracking those internal conversion rates. So the second year, to answer your question, yes, it gets much easier because you have historical data to go from. I will say on average that the businesses that I work with are growing between 30 to 50% a year. But the big thing on that is making sure we're growing and we're profitable too. Because I have had business owners come to me and say, you know what, I doubled my revenue, but I didn't make any more money.
It's not a fun place to be.
Yeah. And so what that comes from is they didn't manage their ratios. Right? They let their payroll costs get out of control. And so it ate their profits up. So those are all things that I'm constantly working with people on, managing the business based on data, watching the ratios on your P&Ls. So that as you scale the business, if you're managing the ratios, then you should maintain a healthy 30 to 40% net margin, no matter how much you make. And I think then that allows you to hire the people to come in and run the factory and remove you from that and only doing what you want to do. You
Right.
know, and for me, having a successful business, that was the biggest benefit, was buying my time back,
Hmm.
where I didn't have to be there.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm getting calls right now about going for American Red Cross for hurricane relief. And, you know, before I would just leave, and I would have to leave in 24 hours and be gone 30, 35 days. Well, my business didn't miss a beat,
Yeah.
you know, and that was, to me, was the biggest benefit of owning the business. And a lot of business owners can't figure out how to get there.
Yeah. So it sounds like a big part of, especially with newer clients that you work with at this time of the year, really the first step is defining what you want out of the business, right? So before
Yes.
you can even think about a marketing budget or marketing plan or any of that stuff, you want to think about what do you want out of it, right? Do you bucket that into like different areas, like what I want out of it financially, what I want out of it, just from a day-to-day, like you mentioned, being able to come home and, at a reasonable hour and, attend family stuff, which is awesome and exactly what I want, too.
Yep.
How do you think about that? Or do you kind of put, like a list of just your wishes, or what does that look like?
Yeah. I mean, that's a really great question. And that's why I always have people do personal, professional, and financial goals.
Hmm.
Okay. And here's the thing is, you have to grow personally and professionally before you'll ever grow financially.
Hmm.
You know, so and with some people, it's not about having a mega firm that makes millions and millions of dollars. You know, I've got one client I work with right now that makes, she's like 750,000. That's all I want to make. I like a boutique firm. I have 2 staff members. It gives me a 55% net margin. I'm good with that. But
Yeah.
she's growing personally and professionally with how to manage the business, right? So knowing our personal and professional goals. So like, how many days a week do you want to work in the business? You know, and if you only want to work 3 days, why do you only want to work 3 days? Is it because you want to spend more time with family, or is it because you don't really know why? You just think it sounds cool, right? I
Yeah.
don't know. So I think it starts with the personal and professional goals. Now, knowing in this country, a lot of times success is by material things. So I'll talk in terms of revenue growth and having that house in Belize and this and that. But that's how this people in this country measure success a lot of times. So that's usually the conversation. But like with me, the biggest thing that was for me was to be home with the kids, but also to be able to go volunteer with the Red Cross. And we were able to do that. I think we were on 23 deployments where I was gone more than 30 days.
That's
And
awesome.
the business doesn't miss a beat. People just step in. The systems are airtight. Everything runs the same from marketing all the way through to the end. And we have redundancy in our training so that everybody just steps in. And so to me, that was the most important. So that's part of my professional goals, was to get a business that serves me instead of the other way around.
And I think a benefit of that I didn't know would happen once I started making some more of those moves, and it wasn't just me running every single marketing campaign where and we started to develop some of that infrastructure, was it really, one, reduced anxiety, and also I think it gives you more space to think, to really do your best thinking, right? And you're not when you feel more confident in that, the clients are being taken care of well and other things like that, I feel like that's what really allows you to do that unstressed thinking about really what's best for the business. And you're not kind of forcing yourself into making these like very quick or uneducated decisions. And I think that being able to take a step back, allows you to go 2 steps forward. At least that's been my personal experience.
Well, I would agree. So there's a difference between working on the business and working in it.
Right.
And when
And then
we're working in it,
understand the difference of that, you
yeah,
know?
when we're working in it, we kind of have blinders on. We can only see right what's in front of us. We don't have the bandwidth to be able to
Absolutely.
be up above the trees to see. So that's why, when we first start a business, we don't have a choice. We're wearing all the hats, but we start to fire ourselves from certain roles to eventually where all I'm doing is overseeing things and then thinking about what's next,
Mhm.
and how are we going to go about doing that? One struggle that I see business owners have is relinquishing that control, right?
Certainly.
I experienced it where I was doing sales and I was closing people left and right. And I'm like, man, I can't have somebody else do this. They can't sell as good as me. And I found out that was wrong, and I trained them and they came in and they had very, very similar closing rates. And that was my light bulb moment that, you know what, if I can do it, all that means is that it's physically possible. And then
Yeah.
I can train somebody. So as long as I can train somebody and I can hire somebody that's better than me at it,
Yeah.
knock yourself out. I don't have an ego in this thing, and now I can not worry about sales anymore, and then that starts to elevate me to where I'm finally at the 50,000-foot view,
Right.
being able to see what we're doing next.
Makes sense. And so you're working with, private clients, but you're also doing some workshops too, that
Yes.
cover these items specifically. And so are those open for people
Yeah.
to join? And maybe you could share just, the dates and, all of this is available at your website. So, I think anybody who's, wanting to get this done and knows they should get it done, but maybe aren't ready to get into like a full coaching program or anything like that. This sounds like
Sure.
a really great opportunity to do some of that important planning right now.
Yeah, we had, and that's what I've been thinking about and actually redesigning my business this year. Because, I've worked with over 450 businesses in the last 5 years and helping them. So when I launched this business, I left the company I was with before last October
Mhm.
of 23. And so I launched my business. Well, my first thing was replace my income. So it was just get one-on-one clients. I was able to do that in 9 days. So now it was like, okay, well, I only want to take on a limited number of one-on-one clients. And so with those guys, I do 3-hour calls a month where we are going through every part of their business and I'm giving them strategy on what to go out and execute. They
Right.
have group calls they can come to. There's training calls. There's all kinds of things. And then I have a mastermind group that they meet 4 times a year. What I started thinking about was I can't help everybody one-on-one and not everybody wants one-on-one.
Mhm.
So this year, in fact, I'm in the process right now of launching some other options. Oh, and to get to your question, those private clients all have access to my fourth quarter planning workshops. So I've got the business plan workshop is actually this coming Monday and Tuesday, the October 6th and 7th, depending on the date this airs. My marketing plan workshop is in November and then the budget workshop is in December. So that's all included with the one-on-one people. Knowing that people may not want to or can't work with somebody like me one-on-one, I started thinking about how can I do this one-to-many, right, at a lower price point. And so one of the things we're doing is October 31st and November 1st here in St. Louis, we're going to have a business plan-a-thon. And
All right.
basically come in for 2 days and you will walk away with your business plan. And that's something that if they are interested in something like that, we can give a email address or a link to register for it.
What's the website?
The website is
Website.
perseverancesquared.com.
Awesome. And I'll put this in the notes and everything with that, but that'll have more information about it if you're
Yeah.
you're interested in getting involved with it. But it sounds like a great opportunity, to get started with you, and kind of get
Yeah,
going in that.
we just announced that yesterday.
Okay,
And I've got 10 businesses that have registered today for
awesome.
that. So I think it's going to be a good time. Now, that may be too fast for people too, right? So another thing that I'm working on is a 5-week course that you can take, and the lessons will be delivered once a week. So it's over 5 weeks, but at the end of the 5 weeks, you will walk away with your business plan in hand. It's a virtual course. It's at a lot less price point because of that. So the price point on it is $997 for the
Mm,
5-week course. That's going to
okay.
launch January 6th.
Okay,
So
awesome.
we'll have more information on that. That's under kind of a sub business that is I'm calling it the Business Accelerator Institute. And
All
not
right.
only am I putting together this 5-week course, but I'm going to build a library of college level courses that address all 7 parts of the business. So there'll be under the level 100 courses, there'll be a marketing 101, sales 101, and then there'll be level 200 courses, level 300 courses, and people can get involved in that for like $149 a month, and they have access to all the courses. That's going
Awesome.
to be sometime around second quarter of next year.
Okay, awesome. So a lot of cool stuff coming up. Where did you learn about this stuff, right? Like, so what were some of the formative, people or resources that you looked at to create this and kind of adopt it for law firms? Because now I feel like there's at least maybe I'm a little biased because I'm in the industry, but
Mhm.
it seems like there's a lot of people out there, doing legal consulting or coaching, like, so there are options now, but I imagine it wasn't always like that.
No, it wasn't. And I first went and I started studying the human buying process because I sucked at sales.
Hmm.
And that was, my first, I don't even remember who I bought the material from, but it really walked you through how a consumer makes a buying decision and what's important. And you might be thinking, well, who cares about that? Well, we want to understand how they make a buying decision because lawyers in particular, all of their marketing, we make decisions based on emotion, right? Every decision we make, a human being makes it in the emotional side of their brain. And then as soon as a decision's made, our brain is designed to protect us from harm. So
Hmm.
as soon as we make a decision, the logical side of the brain kicks in and tries to justify the decision. That's where buyer's remorse lives. And
Right.
so most law firms target the logical side of the brain with their marketing, and they're not targeting those emotional things people are going through that will get them to raise their hands. So a lot of that buying process I learned not only in college but through a local person here in St. Louis. And then on the marketing side, I studied Dan Kennedy and a lot of the people under Dan Kennedy for how to do direct response marketing. So instead of saying I'm a bankruptcy lawyer and I've got 20 years experience, call me today, which appeals to the logical side of the brain, my
Right.
headline said, are you about to lose your home and can't tell your family you're going to live on the street?
Yeah.
And it's like, and as soon as we started running those ads, I went from averaging 3 clients a week to 60, 65 clients a week. And it was like a
Wild.
no-brainer. So that really opened my eyes. So here's what I would say. Most business owners are made up of part technician, part manager, and part entrepreneur. Many of your professionals out there, doctors, lawyers, CPAs, they're great technicians, but they suck at managing a business and they suck at marketing because they've never been taught it. Right.
Hmm.
I was like 80% entrepreneur. I happened to be a lawyer, but I was 80% entrepreneur. I couldn't care less if I had practiced law. I was wanting to build a successful business. And so, I've studied Dan Kennedy for marketing. I've studied Myron Golden on his boss moves, on really how to, if you follow the 4 boss moves, you can really just quadruple the revenue in your business. It's running a business and growing it and scaling it is simple. The concepts are simple, but it's not easy. Nobody ever says it's going to be easy. But those are the main people and where I learned most of what I did. And I will say a lot of it was from just trial and error.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to prevent people from doing now, because even though I can say in the end, I had an 8-figure business that was successful, I made I almost said a bad word. I made a lot of mistakes, and that cost me time and it cost me a lot of money.
And just frustration too,
Yes.
like learning those lessons. And not to say that you shouldn't have to learn any lessons like that, but I think there's a lot of value in walking where the footsteps already are.
Yeah, and that's where I think having the relationship, even if it's a one-to-many situation, like one of the things I do right now is I have open office hours every Wednesday morning. And so I just open my Zoom, and any business owner that wants to jump in there and ask a question can do that. A lot of them just come to listen to what everybody else is asking because they learn from that, So those are the things that I think if you can lean on somebody who is not just teaching theory, but has done it in the past and has done it successfully. And not only successfully in one location, but we had offices once I had St. Louis down pat, we took that exact model and went to Detroit. And then we went to Kansas City, and then we went to Miami, and it worked in all of those places, right? So having somebody that has that ability, and then also don't forget that you always have to keep in mind what your end game is for the business, right? With a lawyer, it's like, okay, am I building a mega firm that I can pass down for generations? Well, none of my kids were interested in law school, none. And I didn't have any partners, so that was out of the question. So my end game was always to sell it. And there's a few things that you need to do to increase the value of that business so you can sell it. If it's a business that relies on me and my image and referrals from my people I know, then what are you really buying if you come in and I walk away and all that business walks away with me? Right. So my biggest thing was develop a marketing and sales system that produces 18 to 20 phone calls every day, not dependent on me, and that is valuable, and then having the systems in place so that I always use the McDonald's example. They're probably best known for their systems. It doesn't matter what 16-year-old is building that cheeseburger. The systems, it tastes the same. And so I built my business out that way so that if somebody was gone for a month because of COVID or whatever, I could plug somebody else right in it and the business kept running. Right. And those were the two things that made it as valuable as it was when I sold it. So making sure that even we might be 20 years away from calling it quits or retiring, but know what your end game is and start building the business to maximize that value.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. Well, that's all really good, I think, for 2024 and kind of getting everybody in the right shape. Let's switch gears just a little bit to 2025. Let's assume all that stuff is taken care of, right? What, just broadly speaking, I'd love to get your point of view on what you see as some of the big changes or challenges that law firms will face in 2025, whether it's technology, consumer preferences, like what's on your couple things that are on your radar?
Yeah, I don't think, well, I can't say that. Let me back up. I don't think people will change. They're always going to have problems, and they're always going to have problems that they can't solve on their own. And so the need for a lawyer will always be there. I know there's some thoughts out there about, oh my God, AI is going to replace the lawyer. No, it's not. In fact, if you look at it the right way, it can probably help you become more efficient, but it's never going to replace them. If something like that could replace a lawyer, then LegalZoom would have already done it. So I know there's a lot of thought and written stuff out there right now about AI is going to replace it. I just don't see it happening. I think people are going to have problems. I do think you have some cyclical kind of things. It depends on elections. It depends on all kinds of things, right? But what I do tell people is be careful not to develop limiting beliefs based on a prior experience, right? We can change the outcome. There's always a cause and effect. And if we identify the cause, we can get a different outcome. So that's the biggest thing I would say is, yes, there's trends, but don't develop a limiting belief around it. I've had business owners tell me, oh, well, the summer is always slow for my business and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm like, BS. Right. BS. And I just literally had somebody that had the best summer they've ever had in 20 years, and it opened their eyes that they were causing that themselves. Right. So don't have that limiting belief. I do think technology, the more that we can leverage it, the more efficient we become. Don't take this the wrong way. I'm not saying use technology to replace people, but you don't need as many people. Yeah. Right. And that's how you start to control your payroll ratios. Right. So that's important too. Right. And then I would say that, what was the third thing you mentioned?
Just, I guess, like technology trends, or challenges. I don't know. I think you covered it pretty. I mean, I was going to ask you about AI and just the role you see in him, kind of its potential or where you see it fitting in. But I mean, you already walked right into it. And I mean, kind of my take on it is, I think that, there's a huge opportunity for profit growth for law firms, because it's, if you think it's just going to you press a button. I think people have this idea that it's like you press a button and it does everything for you, right? And it's going to completely take your job, or whatever their like kind of instant notion is from it. But what we utilize it for and how we've been starting to integrate it is, like, it will get you about 80% there, on kind of whatever the task is. And you can also train it now more so that, whether it's like document preparation or I've been doing some different podcasts about this, about, how you can use it for drafting letters. You can use it to, start to proofread your team's work. You can, there's a lot of capability in terms of it being able to, be kind of a co-pilot and assist and maybe reduce some of the work you don't like as much. And so that's where I personally see the big opportunity, because if you do that, then I think I think there will be, some cuts in terms of people wise, but I just think, right now I feel like it's more of a way to like supercharge your team instead of, necessarily take people out of the equation.
Yeah, I agree. I use AI a lot as a starting point.
Totally.
Where I'll go in there and say, write me a 700-page article at the 5th grade, at an 8th grade education level or below about X. Yeah. And then I take that and then I will tweak it and make it my own, and so I'll write a policy and procedure about blah, 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 and so I use it as a starting point. I have recently started testing. There's an AI, it's called Synthesia Studio, and where you can create videos using AI, but They have it
Very
where you can go in and create an avatar that is physically you.
right.
And so then all you do is copy and paste the script in there, and then it's you basically doing a video.
Yep.
It still looks a little off, but I'm sure that's going to get better. And if it does, I mean, that's going to make like people that need to produce videos regularly, to put on their website or whatever, it would make
Right.
that process so much easier.
Yeah, 100%. We're deep in that world right now, working on
Yes.
a solution, because it's I mean, we tried to start a product that was like, you record a video like a podcast, we'll cut it up into smaller videos, we'll do a newsletter. We quickly learned that the attorney we were working with did not follow instructions. The video quality was awful. They were not ready for camera, right? And so we went in the other direction and actually ended up creating, using an avatar to create it. And it was like, okay, don't have to worry about the lighting. Don't have to worry about them staying on script. It made things so much easier. And so I think the people who are, the lawyers who are out there kind of poking around with this stuff and finding little ways to increase their, to incorporate it into their work life, I think are going to be the ones that are really, ahead of everyone else in 2025 would be my take.
And and the reason I don't think it's ever going to replace like the professional is because with every case it's different, and part of the success of lawyers is to be able to do that analytical and critical thinking, to think of a way around something or a way that I don't think AI will ever get to that point where it would. Maybe it will, I don't know. But I don't see it in the foreseeable future. I think there still has to be input on it. I was just in San Francisco filming my courses, and they have a ton of driverless Ubers out there.
Right.
And I was like freaking out about getting in one, and having it drive me around. So I'm not comfortable with that yet. So I'm taking a regular Uber. But so I just don't think it's going to take over the world, like everybody's saying it's going to. But let's just figure out, when I ran my business, and even in my business now, I always look at things in other industries and I say, how can I use that in my business? And then try to put it in play. And anything I can do to make things more efficient or systematic or cost less, then let's get it going and test it out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Well, it's really appreciate all your insight on this. I think it's what I like about what you bring to the table for law firms and just kind of the structure of how we did it. It's, you're very clear and specific, right, about the importance of the business plan, a marketing plan, and a budget, not trying to overcomplicate it with what I hear a lot of people talking about is like mentality and, and kind of a lot of this like, kind of existential stuff. And I really like the fact that like, we have some specific stuff, right, as homework for an attorney who's trying to improve their growth in their business. So James' website is perseverancesquared.com.
And then that's for like the coaching part of it, and the workshops that are available.
Right.
Another my other website is businessaccelerator.institute.
Okay.
And that's where the virtual course is going to live, and those ongoing courses. On Facebook, you can find both of those. And then on Facebook, I have another group that's specifically for lawyers. It's called Raising the Bar.
Awesome. And what's kind of the background on that group, or what do people do there?
It's mostly lawyers. That it's kind of like getting the people that are in the same kind of like-minded individuals that are really serious about growing their business and doing it the right way. So Raising a Bar was just for me to separate a little bit, for specifically for lawyers. But I've kind of expanded my business now to where I will work with professionals in general. So it can be doctors, it could be CPAs, it can be marketing agency owners, whatever it is, dentists, because I think it's the same. They're great technicians, but never been trained to run a business. And that's kind of why we launched Business Accelerator Institute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I'm sure it's going to be super helpful to a lot of folks out there. So, well, thank you so much for joining, and really enjoyed our conversation. And check James out and get into one of the workshops this year, and it'd be a great way to kind of kickstart your business. So, thanks again.
All right, thank you, sir. Have a great rest of your day.